know if it will rain tonight, I purposely did not flag it as not having main. That's really subordinate syntax. That's the canonical subordinate syntax. So I think you can have the discourse effect of a main clause question even when you have standard subordination. The question that is somewhat open in my mind, but my bias is towards saying when you have main clause syntax, then you have discourse active status. So if quasi-subordination, if that means syntactic subordination with discourse active status, canonical subordination can, in a particular context, lend itself to quasi-subordination, but root clause embedded clauses must be quasi-subordinated, i.e. have discourse active status. That's what I would want to test. But my bias right now is towards saying subordinate, how should I call it? True subordinate clauses, right? True subordination may or may not have discourse active status, but subordination with root phenomena must be must have discourse active status. This is my current working hypothesis, I should say. Must have discourse active status. But how you like you can create contexts where I know but I still want to test, etc. But that you can do even with real questions, right? I ask you questions very often thinking that I know the answer, right? So discourse active doesn't mean that speaker in here you really don't know the answer. It may be a little more nuanced than that. So much more to do. Okay, I think we will stop. For chai and
there are 2 handouts, please.
So after break, I will briefly go over, well, however brief it is, go over this extraction versus long distance scrambling. Yeah, Gargi.
I was just saying, when in this context where you have like Susan believes isn't like there is a question in the end where what do you think about it, and you just because otherwise you wouldn't get it. It's not really a statement per se.
But yeah, okay. I'll let you two. I'll just listen.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a context where the party coming in or anything in the room doesn't really need to be asked. Simply says what's happening, etc. Susan believes that it will rain or something like that. No, it won't.
You wouldn't just say it.
Why not?
You need it. I need it.
So you're saying there's a covert.
You might want to correct somebody saying that, okay, it doesn't matter what Susan thinks, but the facts are that it won't rain. So you would basically want to clarify it. You can think of a context like that.
Yes.
I mean, look, in classrooms, what happens is 2-3 people are discussing, and maybe they don't have the information. Some teacher walks in and listens to the conversation and says, okay, what's happening? You tell them. And because this teacher or somebody who has that information, extra plate, can tell you, but that's wrong. No, it won't. No, this won't happen. And then you can go on to explain why it won't happen.
No, that's fine. I'm not saying you cannot say this. What I'm saying is when you are saying that this person believes this and this, you are saying it in a place where you would put a question.
So, okay. So that's sort of the one way to think about it is we have the option of quotations, right? Or imperatives. We can say give the answer to Susan's question. Is it raining? But we use a simple declarative to convey that same information. And your point is maybe there's a or I'm syntacticizing your question, which is to say, or semanticizing, whatever, putting it in the syntax that there's a piece, covert, what do you think about it? Or can you answer it, or something, I don't know. And we are saying you still have the syntax of the original question is still not a question per se, right? Because so how is it that it's the syntax of a declarative that gets co-opted? Yeah.
Just one last.
Mm-hmm.
In this sense, you would ask that question in a particular context, right? It's not neutral question.
Mm-hmm.
It's like someone who is asking is like there is a disbelief or a context.
No. Okay, here's a neutral context. So again, this is a scenario. Let's say the secretary is making the schedule for next semester. You know that she makes the schedule. You know that the chair decides who will teach what. This is in the US. I'm sure it's not that different here. Let's say there's a new faculty member who the chair said, when you get a chance or whatever, I don't know if this person, will teach, is okay teaching semantics 2 or not. And as the new professor is walking by, she says, the chair would like to know if you can teach semantics 1 next semester. The person is not going to answer, okay. All the secretary is doing is reporting what the thoughts of the chair, right? So what will that new faculty member likely to say? They'll either say, sure, I'll teach it, because they're new. Or they could say, no, I already have committed to something or the other. So the secretary had the choice of asking, will you teach semantics 2 next semester? For whatever reasons, she pitched it as what the question that the chair has in mind, right? Reporting that. But the effect, so it's not arguing against what you're saying. It's always so that's why the context matters. If the context is one where, why is the chair not putting out the schedule yet? If that was the context. And in that context, if the secretary said the chair is wondering if so-and-so would teach semantics 1, no one will give an answer to that question, because that's then the context supports the report of that person's thoughts, right? It's the reason for the delay is that she's still waiting to find out some fact, right? So there's no denying the fact that context is very, very important in making something that is subordinate become the main point. This only makes sense because the explicit or implicit idea behind the way we have been looking at subordination is that it's the main clause that's the boss, right? That's what we're doing. And this is saying, no, look, pragmatically, very often, depending on the context, the balance shifts. And my emphasis on what happens when you have root. So that's one track. And then the other track is saying there are times when embedded clauses show main clause syntax. And I'm trying to link the two by saying whenever you have a deviation from the norm, it's only licensed if there's a change in the canonical balance of what is the main point, what's the less salient point. If that's the case, then we should expect this. But I could be wrong, and maybe there are lots of cases where you have root clause phenomena in embedded clauses that don't care about particular context. It could be, doesn't matter whether you have a context where the schedule is delayed or the schedule, I'm going to complete the schedule based on what you answer. I think that it's not quite that simple, but like I said, you should make hypotheses that can be tested. So, but your point is well taken too. Okay, T.